Right now, this car is making 2,000 horsepower, trying to tear itself apart. It used to make 200. Here's exactly how it got there. Stage 1. And here's the part that sounds like a conspiracy but isn't. Your factory engine is already breathing through a straw, on purpose. Every engine is really just an air pump. Suck in air and fuel, burn it, push the exhaust out thousands of times a minute. And more air moved per second means more power, full stop. But narrow intake pipes and a muffled restrictive exhaust are tuned that way for noise limits, emissions testing, and to shave a few dollars off every car built. Engineers can measure exactly how much power that restriction costs at high RPM, and it's a real, noticeable chunk, quietly thrown away on every single car that rolls off the line. Unclog both ends, a freer intake, a straighter exhaust, and the engine can finally inhale and exhale properly. It's a balancing act, though. Go too wide on the intake pipe and the incoming air actually slows down and loses the low-speed punch it had before. So the real gain comes from the right size, not just the biggest possible one. Get that balance right, and it's often good for 20 or 30 real horsepower for free, and it's the cheapest stage on this entire ladder. This ordinary car goes from a dead stop to 60 in around 7.5 seconds. This stage barely moves that number. But that's not where the biggest number is hiding. The biggest number isn't in the pipes at all. Stage 2. And this is the one that should actually annoy you. Plug a laptop into a port under your own dashboard, and in about 20 minutes, your car can gain another 20 or so horsepower it already had. Not new parts, not a new engine, software. The factory's own computer was deliberately told to hold boost, fuel, and ignition timing back, because the exact same engine gets sold on 5 continents, running on wildly different fuel quality, and the computer has to assume the worst gas station on Earth every single time. Because a warranty claim 10 years from now needs to be survivable. Because a certification test has to be passed. There's even a tiny microphone bolted to the engine block, always listening for the first hint of trouble, ready to snatch power back the instant it hears something it doesn't like. It's listening for one very specific sound, and that sound becomes a real problem several stages from now. None of this caution is about keeping you safe on the road. A tune simply tells the engine's computer to stop assuming the worst, and hands back power that was sitting there the entire time, fully built, fully paid for, just switched off. Which raises an obvious question. If the engine can already make more power just by asking, why not just keep asking? Because past this point, the engine runs out of air to breathe on its own. So stage 3 forces the issue. A turbocharger is a fan spun by your own exhaust gas, spinning faster than a jet engine's turbine, well over 100,000 rotations a minute, and its entire job is to cram more air into the engine than it could ever inhale by itself. There's a catch before the power even arrives. For a moment after you floor it, there isn't enough exhaust flow yet to spin the turbo up to speed. A short delay engineers call turbo lag, the gap between asking for power and the power actually showing up. And squeezing that much air together doesn't just move it, it heats it. Compressed intake air can spike well over 100 degrees hotter than asphalt on a summer afternoon, and hot air is thinner and far more likely to detonate inside the cylinder. So it gets run through an intercooler first, a small radiator whose only job is cooling that air back down before it ever reaches the engine. Get all of that right, and the power jump is enormous, often 2 or 3 times what the engine made a moment ago in one single stage, cutting the run to 60 into the 4-second range. But every extra molecule of air means a harder, hotter explosion inside every cylinder, and the factory pistons and rods underneath were never built for that. They're taking hits now they were never engineered to survive. You'd expect the next stage to just be more boost, more power, It isn't, because something else entirely just became the actual bottleneck. Stage 4 is the twist almost nobody sees coming, and it has nothing to do with the engine at all. Floor it now, and the car doesn't get dramatically faster in a straight line, it just spins. Here's why. The entire weight of this 2-ton machine is transferred to the road through 4 contact patches, and each one, at any given moment, is roughly the size of your palm. Under hard acceleration, that weight physically shifts backward onto the rear tires, which is exactly why launching a car well is as much about balance as it is about horsepower. 4 hand-sized patches of rubber are the only thing connecting 2 tons of car to the asphalt, and they can only grip so hard before they simply give up and slide. So all that extra horsepower stops mattering. It just turns into tire smoke and noise. Wider, softer tires grip harder, but that grip is a trade. The softer the rubber, the faster it wears out, which is exactly why you'll see a launch prepped with a burnout first, spinning the tires on purpose to heat them up, because warm rubber grips noticeably better than cold. Fix the grip with wider tires and a stronger drivetrain to feed it through, and here's the strange part. The horsepower number on this car doesn't move at all, and the run to 60 still drops by more than a full second, without a single extra horsepower under the hood. This stage was never really about the engine. It was about finally being able to use the engine you already had. Fix the grip though, and the engine is now the thing that has to survive what you're about to ask of it. Stage 5. Survival. Cast metal, like the stock pistons in most engines, is poured into a mold and cools into a grain structure that's a little porous, a little brittle. Fine for stock power, not for this. Forging squeezes the metal under enormous pressure instead, compressing that grain structure into something denser and far stronger. And that's what goes into a piston or connecting rod built for this stage. Add stronger rod bolts, better bearings, an oil pump and cooler that can keep up with the extra heat, and a fuel system that can actually feed a fire this size without starving it. And together, they unlock several hundred more horsepower the stock parts simply couldn't survive holding. Enough to push the run to 60 under 3 seconds. This is the real line on the ladder, the difference between fast car and an engine that could destroy itself on a single hard launch. Past this stage, there's only one thing left that can still go wrong, and it isn't the metal. It's the fuel itself. Stage 6. At this much boost and this much ignition timing, ordinary gasoline starts to fail in a very specific way. It detonates too early, exploding inside the cylinder before it's supposed to, in a tiny, violent shockwave engineers call knock. And knock can crack a piston in a single afternoon. That tiny microphone from stage 2 is listening for exactly this, and the moment it hears the ping of knock, the computer yanks the timing back in milliseconds to protect the engine, quietly costing you power in the process. Ordinary pump gasoline is usually rated somewhere in the low 90s on the octane scale. Race fuel can push past 100, and a high ethanol blend like E85 resists that early detonation even better than pump gas, while often costing less per gallon. And ethanol has a second trick. It absorbs heat as it evaporates, cooling the whole intake charge on its way into the cylinder. Between the two effects, an engine at this level can finally run more boost and more aggressive timing without that microphone constantly pulling it back, often worth a few hundred more horsepower on its own. One stage left, and what it takes to get there means this car can never just drive to work again. Stage 7. The ceiling, and the car you saw at the very start of this video. Billet steel block, machined from a single solid piece of metal because a cast one would eventually crack. 2 turbochargers the size of dinner plates. A fuel system, a cooling system, a transmission and clutch rebuilt just to survive transmitting this much torque without shattering, and a computer built for one purpose only, producing one number once on a dyno or down a quarter mile. This is the 2,000 horsepower car, Again, something like a dozen ordinary cars compressed into one engine, capable of hitting 60 in around 2 seconds. And building it, stage by stage, can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you're finished. And here's the honest twist. The ceiling was never really a technical wall. Engineers could push further. The real ceiling is that turbos this size barely wake up at a stoplight. Camshafts this aggressive give the engine a rough, lumpy idle, and a fuel system built to feed a dyno pull can drink through most of a tank of race fuel in a single afternoon at the strip. Engines built to this exact extreme are often rebuilt after a handful of full power passes, not driven for years like an ordinary engine. Past this point, the car stops being able to idle smoothly, stops being reliable for 10,000 miles, and stops being something you could ever just casually drive. Past this stage, the car stops being a car and becomes a very expensive answer to one single question. So here's the honest version of this ladder. Stage 1 costs you almost nothing and hands back real power for free. Call it $10 for every extra horsepower. Stage 2 is a laptop and an afternoon. By stage 4, you're not even buying more power anymore. You're buying the ability to use power you already had, and it drops the run to 60 faster than stages that added hundreds of horsepower. By the final stage, that same extra horsepower costs you well over $100 each, which is exactly why most builds that stop at all stop somewhere in the middle of this ladder, where the power per dollar is still good and the car can still be lived with day to day. And by stage 7, you've spent as much as a house down payment, taken the run to 60 from 7.5 seconds down to about 2, and built something that can barely be driven anywhere. Somewhere on this ladder, for every single build like this, there is a point where the money and the trouble stop being worth the horsepower. And that point is different for everyone. So tell me, looking at this ladder, where would you have stopped? The $500 tune that gives you power for free? Or would you have kept climbing all the way to the $200,000 monster that can't even idle in traffic? Subscribe, because Pip is decoding the hidden machinery inside everyday things, one stage, one system, one build at a time. We've already pulled apart the engine that makes this whole ladder possible in the first place. Go watch that next, and tell me in the comments, what should we climb the ladder on next?